did sales all start? Today we have a conversation with Charles Areni, Professor of Marketing, on his opinion on where sales started. Charles, thanks so much for having a conversation with us. Where did sales all start? This is the question we want to ask. As an academic, a professor of marketing, what is your interpretation of the term sales, and where do you think this sales transaction, this sales mentality started?
Yeah, look, I think it goes back throughout the history of humanity. There's a great book by Daniel Pink that basically says, humans were sort of born to sell. When you think of the idea of having money or income to spend, you've got to do something to create a transaction. And that's what sales is. It's the closest to revenue. Now, we think of revenue as, a big organization and they have various sources of revenue. But back when we were sort of trading in more basic economies and, you were a blacksmith and I dealt in dry goods, everybody needed that source of income. And so everybody was involved in sales. It became professionalized at some point in the 20th century, but we've been doing it since humanity started trading things.
Charles, I'd like to get your opinion on events throughout, time that have shaped the way people sell now and have maybe changed the way we sell. You talk about big data.
Yeah.
I know we have a big data fetish. That was a term you told me a while ago.
Yeah.
What else do you think shaped the way we sell and the way we buy?
Well, if you think of the way, let's start with the buyer, because I think there are a lot of changes that have taken place over the last 30 years that have really dramatically changed the nature of the interaction between a buyer and seller that now favor the buyer. So for a very long time, economists talked about asymmetry of information. That when we work for an organization that makes something or provides something in the marketplace, you're an expert. You know everything that you do. It's very specialized. So whatever company that you work for, they produce a specific good or a specific set of services. As buyers, we want to buy everything. We consume an enormous range of goods and services every day, thousands. I mean, if you woke up and said, all right, how many products am I going to use today? You'd run into thousands. The moment you get up, you got to turn off your alarm up. That's your phone, plus the app that went on the phone. Somebody had to make that. And then you're consuming your pillow, right? Enormous range of products. And so for a very long time, sellers had far more knowledge about what they were selling, what it was worth, what it could do, how it was made, than the buyer. If you want to consume all that diversity and all that assortment of goods and services, you don't have time to become an expert on any one of them. You just don't. So the asymmetry of information still does favor the seller, because when you produce something, you're specialized. But in the advent of the internet, social media, social networking, the ability to find information via search algorithms like Google has made it easier for buyers to get information. And that's information it levels the playing field a little bit, not entirely, but a little bit. So as a salesperson coming in, you have to assume that the buyer may have a little bit more knowledge. And even if they don't, they may think they do. I'll give you an example of that. By the way, we haven't talked about the role of sales in medicine and healthcare. You don't think doctors are sales? You don't. We know the pharmaceutical companies are sales. We get that, but the doctors themselves are playing a role. But something as simple as somebody doing a series of Google searches on a condition that they think they have, they're going to go into that interaction thinking they have expertise, whether they do or not. So I think instead of the salesperson coming in with the idea that I know everything about my company's products and I'm up here in knowledge and the buyer knows very little, you have to kind of take a step back and say, this buyer may think that he or she knows something, and so I've got to sort of acknowledge that there's a lot of information out there in cyberspace and have to maybe be a little bit more respectful of what the buyer may already know. The asymmetry still favors the seller over the buyer. But in the last 30 years or so, starting with the internet, maybe that asymmetry has been eliminated a little bit.
Charles, moving on, what is then your opinion of the sales function in business right in this current day and age?
As important, if not more important than it's ever been. And again, it gets right back to what I said, revenue. What companies work without sources of revenue? I haven't found many, unless it's all government subsidy. So companies need revenue to survive. What is the function in business that is closest to the transfer of revenue into the organization? Sales. That's it. That hasn't changed. Now, whether we call it sales, well, that's fine. You can call it what you like. If you want to move away from negative connotations of the traveling salesperson of the 50s or the unscrupulous automobile salesperson of the 60s and 70s, fine. Call it what you like, but you're going to need somebody there, particularly, again, if what your organization does are major sales, high financial risk, customized solutions. Again, think of the world that we live in now with IT. Customized solutions are the call of the day. Well, we've known for 50 years that for customized solutions, you've got to have the personal selling function there, where you're selling things that organizations aren't familiar with buying. They know how to send. It's not a straight rebuy. They've never bought it before. They don't even know how to approach comparison of different bids. You're going to need personal selling in all those situations. So the moment you talk revenue, you got to talk personal selling, particularly if you're not selling, $5 widgets.
Now, I want to ask you the connection between teaching it and professional, and it being a professional function. Mm-hmm. Is there a connection?
Oh, I think there is definitely a connection between somebody right now. Let's talk about right now in the year 2020. Somebody coming out with a business degree, if they've majored in marketing, chances are they have taken a subject, at least one, as part of their marketing major that touches on the personal selling function, although it may not be called personal selling or sales management, but chances are they've studied it. They come out with a degree, they're going to find themselves working for an organization where they have targets. Any time you're saying, here's the organization, this is the revenue target, congratulations, you're in sales. I don't care what they call your title, you're in sales. The idea that you stop learning when you finish a university degree is the funniest idea in the world, because in fact what happens is you get your first job and you learn at an accelerated rate. You thought you were learning fast at university, and then you get your first job and you go, wow. And the more you change jobs, the more you're accelerating your rate of learning. But the question is, do you want to have something like what a university provides, which is, I have a bachelor's degree in marketing. Okay, well, you're still learning, but can you get something that a professional body provides? Again, like we talked about CPA, certified practicing accountants, certified practicing marketers, that says you've done something formal to advance your education, and not just to advance your education, to demonstrate that you have acquired skills on the job, working for multiple organizations that take you well beyond the last thing that a university certified you as, bachelor's degree. I think there's a definite need for that. I want to know whether I'm dealing with somebody that has 10 years of experience in customer relationship management and has something that an industry body accredits that tells me that with that experience comes these skills. Because that's what I really want to know. I want to know what kinds of skills this person has that I'm dealing with. So I see no reason why you wouldn't have the exact kind of relationship with something like sales or personal selling that you see in other areas, other business functions, financial planning, HR. You've got, for example, the Australian Human Resources Institute. They have, again, professional programs that you can do, in part to learn, but in part to demonstrate what you've already learned, and having a professional body certify that and say this person is now at that level. We see it in other areas, and to me, it's almost a natural that you would have something similar for personal selling.
Charles, it's been an incredible time talking to you. Thank you so much for having a conversation with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.